Today I am taking everybody's favorite blue-eyed King Gojo and placing him in the world of Invincible to see how long he can survive before he gets scared and begs me to send him back to his own universe. Now, yes, the title says Gojo versus Invincible, which some may think means Gojo versus Mark Grayson. But like, come on, it's not my fault that Mark Grayson was arrogant enough to name himself after his own damn show. Don't worry though, because Gojo versus is still going to be the main focus of this video. I just thought it would be fun to also see how Gojo does against others like the Immortal, Omni-Man, Walmart Gwen, and so on. So without any further yap, let's just jump right into it. Let's start off by looking at the incredibly varied levels of speed that characters can reach in the Invincible universe. And yes, to clarify, this video will be focusing on the TV series, so don't stress about any comic spoilers. Now, the Immortal, who is arguably Earth's strongest human hero, is literally stated to have Mark III travel speed when he's flying, which makes scaling the rest of the humans much easier because they should all be very similar to or just below him. Like, are you really trying to tell me Rexplode is running around at Mark III? No. Now, Mark Grayson, aka that's like never gonna get old. Anyway, Mark is already way stronger and faster than the Immortal in Season 2 and gets even stronger in Season 3. Nerds on the internet have looked at feats like him going from Earth to the moon in a matter of seconds and concluded he is roughly 40% of the speed of light, or Mark 352, which is the speed that you should be rushing to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Okay, anyway, this is him going full speed in space. When on Earth, he tends to massively hold back because, you know, obviously he doesn't want to damage or destroy the planet like his dad did to those aliens in Season 1. Now, this actually applies to Omni-Man and the other Viltrumites too. They are massively faster than anyone on Earth, but still hold back to prevent serious damage. Or just because the writers thought it would be boring if the Immortal got turned to dust every time Omni-Man sneezed or just happened to pass him by. Now, Mark actually has even more reason to hold back because he has a very strict no-kill rule for the majority of the show. Anyway, when it comes to Omni-Man and the other Viltrumite speed, it's honestly completely irrelevant how fast you want to calculate them to be. Like, their travel speed in space without holding back is calculated to be many times faster than the speed of light. Yet Omni-Man still takes punches from the Mark III Immortal because realistically they're as fast as the plot needs them to be in that moment. In fact, they can do some weird subatomic science shiz that makes them able to go that fast. Oh, who even really cares about all that? The point is, at top speed, Viltrumites are going to be way too fast for Gojo to even see, but they will likely hold back on Earth in the same way they do against Mark or the Immortal or literally every single other character that they fight. Now, in terms of physical strength, durability, and attack potency, the world of Invincible varies by a truly massive amount. But again, Viltrumites are like, they're strong, bruv. Like, that's all that really matters. They're just hella strong. They're way stronger than Gojo, who maxes out at small city level attack potency. Omni-Man damn near destroys a planet just by flying around really fast in like episode 3, so there's no real comparison to make here. The only real downside to Viltrumites is that they are just kind of kick-punch merchants with no real hacks, which is normally fine because of how bonkers strong they are, but when your opponent literally can't be touched, it becomes one hell of a weakness. Oh, and let's not forget that Mark has a no-kill rule, so even if he could hit Gojo, it wouldn't matter at all because he will massively hold back. But a big advantage they have is that they are definitely far too durable to be one-shot by any of Gojo's non-domain attacks. Damaged, sure, but not fatally. The Immortal and the other Earthlings aren't quite as impressive though. The Immortal is probably similar to Gojo in terms of raw striking power, and almost everyone else will either be way weaker or rely on hacks instead. For example, I don't see Rexplode shattering a building with a normal punch, so he naturally scales below Gojo and the Immortal. Okay, let's put all of the kick-punch merchants off to one side for a moment though, because that's not really going to mean too much in an encounter with Gojo. Gojo is going to be hard carried by his crazy hacks here, which means their best bet is to fight fire with fire and trying to counter Gojo's hacks with their own. I'll get more into this a bit later, but honestly the best weapon Earth has against a threat like Gojo is probably Atom Eve and her ability to literally manipulate matter. Another ability that stands out to me is Darkwing's Shadowverse and how once he traps you in there, there's no escaping. I guess it's kind of similar to Megami's Shadow ability, but without the drawbacks of carrying the weight of whatever he traps in there. And then of course there is just straight up brain power, which is also a potential weapon against Gojo, because nerds like Rudy can analyze Gojo's abilities and try to make some miracle device called the Anti-Honored One or some lazy writing BS like that. The point is, Earth isn't completely helpless because there are some pretty broken powers which don't necessarily rely on strong punch. Okay, since I've kind of glazed Viltrumite's physical capabilities, I think it's about time we gave Gojo some attention and explored what he can really do. And we're gonna start with the absolute worst thing to scale in the entire JJK universe: speed. Now, I'm gonna make this as quick as possible because I hate doing this. Season 2, Episode 16, Toji Zenin blatantly reacts to lightning. Chapter 186, Hikari potentially dodges lightning at close range. I say potentially because the perspective is weird and it may have just been headed for his arm anyway. Chapter 213, Maki reacts and shields herself from Nue's lightning. Chapter 237, Megana potentially evades a blast of something which is either a sound attack or radiation. That means it's either the speed of sound or the speed of light. And I say potentially again because we don't know if he reacted to the blast and dodged or just moved before it was fired. Either way, from looking at all of this, I think it's pretty safe to say that absolute high tiers of Jujutsu Kaisen scale to lightning speed. Do you agree? Yeah? Cool. Well, you're all wrong because they don't. They would be lightning speed if it wasn't for one single statement that limits the entire universe to Mark 3 and maximum Mark 4. Yep, Awakened Maki is shown to be slower than a full-speed Naoya stated to be Mark 3, and all the JJK heavy hitters, including Hikari, are roughly relative to Maki in stats. Gojo and Sukuna are obviously in a league of their own, so I'll be generous and say that Gojo caps out at Mark 4. Gojo's high speed is actually a result of Blue compressing the distance between 2 points and him stepping between them. It's actually very unclear if this is separate from his teleportation, but I don't think it is. I think his blue speed is just mistaken for teleportation due to how it functions. Basically, JJK speed scaling is a load of steaming plop, and we're just gonna completely ignore it, so I'm gonna move on with the assumption that Gojo is Mark 3 or 4, but keep the Mark 3 lightning kind of statement in my back pocket in case of emergencies. Like, in case he ends up getting slammed, I'll be, oh, okay, fine, we'll let Gojo go up to Mark 364. Okay then, time for Gojo's strength and AP, which is pretty easy to figure out, to be honest with you. A blue punch is probably around building level because a weaker black flash punch from Yuji shattered the front of a big building. Maximum blue is around building to city block level. Maximum red is twice the output and can one-shot Maharaga, so I'd say it's probably twice as destructive as blue. For simplicity's sake, let's just assume that it is. Normal purple could probably take out multiple city blocks, whereas unlimited purple is likely a really small city level. And I say really small because it did just objectively do less damage than Sukuna's final fire arrow, and even that only managed to clear out Shinjuku. I mean, people tend to forget that Shinjuku and Shibuya are not actually cities, they are just districts within a city. And for the record, I think scaling things by labeling them as city level or country level is mind-numbingly dumb and boring, but it's what a lot of people understand, so here's your mindless power scaling slop. Basically, Gojo's attacks are more than enough to deal with almost every human hero, and are barely enough to do any damage to a Viltrumite. Also, to be clear, purple is not matter or reality erasure, or whatever dumb bullshit people try and say it is these days. There are some very sciencey people out there who break down exactly how it works and why it's called imaginary mass, and the scientific conclusion is that it just pushes and pulls simultaneously, tearing its target apart. But let's be real, it's easy enough to figure out that it's not reality erasure just by watching the damn show. I mean, Sukuna literally survives purple twice. If it was matter erasure, then his matter would have been erased. A purple and a red would likely do some significant chip damage to Viltrumites, especially ones like Mark. But remember, Omni-Man was heavily damaged and knocked out from his fight with the original Guardians of the Globe, and most of the damage came from the Immortal and War Woman. So if enough of the Immortal's punches can damage Omni-Man to the point of knocking him out, then it's safe to say a purple or a few purples would do decent damage if they landed. Okay, screw physical attacks though, because the real reason Gojo makes this entire interaction so complicated is because of his hacks. First of all, there is the fact that his regeneration factor from using RCT is insane. Like, if there's one thing JJK is better at than a lot of universes, it's their regeneration ability. Almost any injury that doesn't instantly kill Gojo can be healed within seconds, over and over again, due to the Six Eyes making it so that he can never run out of cursed energy. And then there is his Infinity, which covers his entire body. It makes it so that anything that comes near him is infinitely slowed down, which is supposedly achieved by infinitely dividing the distance between him and an object by 2. To put it very simply, no Viltrumite is touching Gojo regardless of how hard they can punch or how fast they can move. Some people try to say that Gojo's Infinity works at an atomic level and therefore anything subatomic cannot get through, which might be true, but then some of them try and argue that anything faster than light can bypass Infinity because light itself can get through, which is objectively false. Light itself could get through because photons are subatomic, but a The real physical structure, for example a whole-ass viltrumite, will be stopped despite moving faster than light because they are still a physical object. And unless they mess up or hold back too much, no viltrumite should lose to Gojo outside of his domain. But it's blatantly clear that they are incapable of beating or containing Gojo because they rely on strong punch and strong kick. Some people will probably cry about that, but it's just the cold hard truth. Like in a 1v1 fistfight, Gojo and any viltrumite will stalemate because they cannot beat him. That is assuming that Mark and Omni-Man don't go insane and just reduce the Earth to dust, leaving Gojo trapped in the vacuum of space. Now anyway, Gojo's hacks don't stop at infinity because unlike the viltrumites, he actually does have one absolutely broken win condition. His domain expansion, Infinite Void. I do not care how durable or strong these characters are. If they get trapped inside a domain, they are as good as toast. I mean, the domain's sure hit is instant, meaning as soon as you are caught in it, information starts pouring into your head at a rate of 2.5 years worth of information per second. 0.2 seconds of exposure was enough to hospitalize a normal human being for 2 months. And even then, it seems cursed energy is the defining factor for how long you can survive being in there, because no way Jogo was intelligent enough to survive 107 years worth of information and walk out completely fine. And regardless of how long you can survive the domain, once it hits you, it instantly paralyzes you. And then Gojo can just either sit there and let your brain cook, or speed things along by spamming you with purple after purple, which after a while would likely kill a viltrumite. Therefore, if Gojo traps any viltrumite in his domain, then it's a Gojo W. The downside to this though is that Gojo will probably only be able to pull it off assuming his opponent knows nothing about it. Yes, any viltrumite could escape the range of the domain before it fully expands in an instant, but I find that argument to be really dumb because, as far as Mark would be concerned, Gojo is just making a weird hand sign and saying meaningless words. Unless he magically knew exactly what a domain was, how the sure hit works, and that it's an instant loss unless he immediately flies away, then I really see absolutely no reason for him to do so. Just because a character can physically do something doesn't mean that they will, and realistically, no character who doesn't know what a domain expansion is gonna instantly run away before Gojo gets a chance to pull it off. That would be like if Mark fought a random no-name villain but decided to run and hide simply because the guy started speaking gibberish. It just doesn't make any sense. The only way I can see a viltrumite avoiding this is if Gojo had already killed one of them this way and they got word of it. But with no prior information, I think Gojo's domain is definitely a fight ender against pretty much anyone. Anyway, with pretty much all of the important information laid out, it's time to pull it all together and figure out exactly how Gojo versus would go down. With the exception of one very important character, Gojo would decimate pretty much every human hero on Earth. His real challenge would be Mark Grayson, Nolan Grayson, Alan the Alien, and any other viltrumite in the series, all of whom are incapable of touching Gojo without the help of some miracle lazy writing technology, or a certain someone who I'm gonna keep teasing for a little bit longer. Now, if you stripped Mark and the others of their personality and brainwashed them not to hold back, then they would reduce the planet to molten garbage and leave Gojo stranded in space. But this is dumb, boring, and unrealistic, so I'm ruling it out as a possibility. What is realistic is that everyone will soon realize Gojo can't be touched, be kind of pissy about it, and then try to touch him anyway out of anger. If they massively hold back, then sure, Gojo might land the odd red, but once Mark realizes they pack a punch, he will lock in and try to avoid Gojo's attacks. Omni-Man would likely react the exact same way, but being a bit more durable, he might play a little riskier and tank more hits. Either way, it's irrelevant. They can't beat him, but both Mark and Nolan will lose if they get trapped in Gojo's infinite void. Don't underestimate Gojo's intelligence either. He will see how fast they are and make sure to use the domain when it's highly likely that they both fall for it. So in a straight Gojo versus viltrumite fight, I would actually give Gojo the edge here. But if Mark teams up with that special someone I keep mentioning, then Gojo is gonna get absolutely fried. And that special someone is none other than Atom Eve, which I'm hoping you guys have probably already worked out by now, because she can manipulate matter on an atomic level and should be able to counter Gojo's infinity in a range of different ways, either by stripping it away directly, depriving Gojo of oxygen, or by beating her mental block and just deleting him from existence. I think her presence will literally turn the battle on its head because she can give Mark openings to land real attacks that will knock Gojo out. The problem is, Mark would need to kill him to stop him because Gojo can heal from anything non-lethal in an instant. So maybe an Eve and Nolan team up would actually be an even better idea because Nolan would not hesitate to knock Gojo's head off his shoulders. Now to finish up, I actually wanted to address something I'm sure some people will bring up in the comments anyway. The Invincible universe doesn't have cursed energy, which means they won't be able to see Gojo's attacks, but it also means that they would be completely immune to his domain expansion. This also means if they manage to kill Gojo, he will come back as a vengeful cursed spirit and then be many times stronger and literally impossible to kill without cursed energy. In order to fix this, we can first equalize by saying everyone has cursed energy in the same way that a normal non-sorcerer does in Jujutsu Kaisen. It means they are vulnerable to infinite void, but they still won't be actually attacking with cursed energy, and Gojo will still reincarnate after death and be an immortal beast of pure destruction. So the only way to actually make this work is by saying all attacks in Invincible are infused with cursed energy, the exact same way they are in Jujutsu Kaisen. Sure, it makes the versus battle more fun to talk about when you even the playing field, but realistically they don't use cursed energy to fight, and therefore would find beating Gojo to be an objectively impossible task. They don't have ESP, so they won't even see a purple or domain coming if they actually fought. But that's no fun, which is why I didn't factor anything like this into the main part of the video. Anyway, in conclusion, Gojo is just that guy, and I will continue to glaze him to the ends of the earth. Realistically though, Mark will call upon his badass girlfriend for help, and they will beat Gojo's ass into oblivion. The infinite void win condition is legitimately the only real threat that he poses. Anyway, if you enjoyed and want to see more, then make sure to like and sub. Feel free to join the Discord and follow me on Twitter, links below. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in a